Law 1975, Chapter 231, the Open Public Meetings Act. Public notice of this meeting was filed on June 23rd, 2025, and revised on January 15th, 2026, with the Office of the Secretary of the State of New Jersey and 3 newspapers: the Cherry Hill Courier Post, the New Brunswick Home News Tribune, and the Newark Star Ledger. Public notice of this meeting was posted in the following university libraries: the Alexander Library in New Brunswick, the Dana Library in Newark, the Robeson Library in Camden, and both the Robert Wood Johnson Library of Health Sciences and the Smith Library of Rutgers Health. Pursuant to Public Law 2020, Chapter 11, public notice of the meeting has been posted on the Rutgers website under governing boards. I'd now like to ask if all have read the agenda and the meeting materials, if anyone member of the board has a conflict of interest to disclose at this time. Seeing as there are none, we continue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Dr. Dockery, will you please present the resolution to move into closed session?
Thank you. Be it resolved that the board meet in immediate closed session on this date, February 11th, 2026, to discuss personnel matters, including an academic appointment with tenure and matters falling within the attorney-client privilege in accordance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, Section 7, Items B, 7, and 8. Any necessary action related to the tenure appointment is expected to be taken in the open session immediately following a closed session. Madam Chair, I so move.
Yes, may I have a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Great, the motion is carried. We'll move into closed session at this time and rejoin about 1:30. Thank you. Governor's meeting. I'd like to open the meeting by welcoming everyone. And just to say, as we meet in Rutgers Camden today and honor and celebrate 100 years of partnership with Rutgers in Camden, I thought maybe a brief overview of our journey to today might be insightful for everyone. The Camden campus of Rutgers traces its roots back to the creation of the South Jersey Law School on March 19, 2026. There were 2 enterprising members of the community, Arthur Armitage and Elmer Van Name, who recognized a strong need and a desire in the community, and they started the South Jersey Law School, which was formally opened in September of 1926. The law school evolved, and the founders soon contacted then Governor Driscoll to talk about the possibility of this law school joining up with the state university. And Rutgers was excited about the opportunity, the governor was excited about the opportunity, and in July of 1950, the South Jersey Law School and the College of South Jersey became a part of Rutgers University. Rutgers Camden flourished and grew significantly through the 1950s, 60s, and 70s with facility expansion, student expansion, program expansion. It was a really exciting period of time, and in 1970, they officially changed the name to Rutgers University Camden College of Arts and Sciences. The 80s and the 90s were also marked by remarkable and significant growth, including a new business school and the addition, the business school, in 1995, was the only South Jersey school with an accreditation by the very respected American Assembly of Collegiate Schools of Business. The business school then soon added an MBA program, a management entrepreneurial program, and many, many others. The last 20 years have continued this momentous growth, including membership in the Big Ten, and Rutgers Camden remains an absolute point of pride for our state university with unlimited potential. So we are absolutely very, very pleased to be holding our meeting in Camden today. I'd like to begin, following my remarks, with a resolution honoring the distinguished service of Mr. Calcado. Whereas Antonio M. Calcado has served Rutgers for more than 30 years, and his contributions have helped transform the university as it has taken its place as one of the nation's finest public research institutions. And whereas in his role as Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Calcado oversaw numerous essential divisions and was critical to the development of the Rutgers 2030 plan, the university's first comprehensive physical master plan, and represented the university as it forged groundbreaking academic relationships with universities around the world. And whereas, as the steward of the university's institutional planning, strategic endeavors, and capital construction programs, Mr. Calcado negotiated and structured productive partnerships with development experts and government authorities at all levels, and his broad and thoughtful leadership enhanced Rutgers' work in various areas, including emergency management, transportation, housing, construction, public safety, and emergency services. And whereas during the COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Calcado acted swiftly to establish a task force that met daily, conducted regular briefings with chancellors, and closely monitored the virus' global impact with foresight, that positioned Rutgers leadership to make informed and effective decisions that enable the university to continue its essential mission in support of students, while also providing critical care to the people of New Jersey at a crucial moment in history. And whereas among his many noteworthy achievements are his crisis management during and in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy to the benefit of Rutgers and New Jersey, his service as a steering team leader during the successful integration of the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey with Rutgers, his leadership as Rutgers hosted a sitting president of the United States for commencement, and his deep commitment to mentoring professional development within the institutional planning and operations, and leadership development through the establishment of the university-wide One Red High Impact Leadership Program. And whereas Mr. Calcado's contributions have guided Rutgers to new heights as a leader in higher education, and his notable legacy of service to students, faculty, staff, and the broader Rutgers community, Mr. Calcado will long be remembered and appreciated. The Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, offers its gratitude to Antonio M. Calcado for his leadership and steadfast commitment to Rutgers students, faculty, staff, and to the citizens of New Jersey. And therefore be it further resolved that the Board of Governors extends its sincere best wishes to Antonio M. Calcado for his continued success and happiness in all his future endeavors. So moved. May I have a second? All those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you. The motion carries. I will now turn the floor over to President Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Universities are archaeological digs. We're really a big part of history. There are all kinds of decisions made. If you look through those archaeological digs, we are products of those decisions. One decision that was made during the presidency of Dr. McCormick was the decision or an effort to join the Big Ten Conference. Subsequently, in about 2012, his predecessor was invited to join, Dr. Barchi. And he laid out the aims of what he had hoped to accomplish by joining the Big Ten. They included national profile and the status of our research and academic enterprise, along with financial sustainability. It was my job, in many respects, to look backwards, to uncover, really to explore as an archaeologist, what really happened after that decision was made. And I penned an op-ed for NJ.com that articulated what I found. And for me, I'm being new here, I think this is month 8, 7, depends on how you count. I was blown away. It's absolutely phenomenal that they made a decision as a leadership team 2 different leadership teams to join that conference and to articulate national profile and research standing on every metric the institution moved forward. It didn't matter who was measuring. It was really an amazing journey for me as your current president. I commend every single person who's been here through that time period because you've done an outstanding job. And I realize our journalist friends focus purely on NCAA accounting when they talk about our participation in the Big Ten Conference. However, Rutgers is a medical enterprise, it is a research enterprise, it is a teaching and learning enterprise, and we are where we belong, among peer institutions who are outstanding at all of those because we are. And that's the story. That's what I want you to understand. And we can be better, and will be, because we want to be the very best. I added one other aim. It's very simple. Win. That's it. Win. Speaking of winners, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we have 3 graduates studying in China as Schwarzman Scholars. That's part of the winning. We have a pharmacy student who's been named a Rhodes Scholar. We are among the top producers of the Fulbright Student Awards. I'm going to stop there because it focused on students. But the students are where they are because of faculty and staff. You do not win these awards without outstanding support structures and academic infrastructure. For us to compete like this is a sign of why we are in the Big Ten. And those Big Ten assets exist in every single one of our campuses. I ask you to lean into that. That's the level of quality that exists at Rutgers. Top-ranked university in every single campus, top 50 public. Special. I had an opportunity to participate in a panel in NJBIA. I don't know how you say it here. It was the B down in Louisiana, but it's our business partnership group. And we had a chance to talk about some important things there. I want to emphasize. The first thing I said to them is, I don't want to hear any business about humanities majors not being important. They are. Extremely important. Our job is to make sure those very, very bright people, no matter what they major in, that it's sticky, that they stay in New Jersey. If we do that, you'll be happy with the English major from Rutgers. They'll be very, very bright and be able to do a lot of things. We also have to turn some of our research into companies. That's going to be part of our strategic planning efforts. And we have to feed small and medium-sized businesses with skilled workers. I think we can be viewed as the strongest anchor for regional growth in all of our municipalities that we touch. And that's our aim. I want to offer some insight onto something you're going to see in just a bit from Patrick Murray, who we hired as a consultant to do a survey of New Jersey residents and businesses to look at Rutgers. If you read the national press, they will have surveys that have national polling strategies that tend to speak about the demise of higher education, trending downward, with people less satisfied, et cetera, et cetera. What you're going to hear is a very different story about how people view Rutgers in this state. It's extremely important that you understand that all higher education is local. There is no national university per se. We're a state university. We're the state university, and it's most important for people to understand how our constituents in the state view us, not how someone in Alabama views us. That's not relevant for New Jersey. And so you will hear findings from that, and I can't tell you how excited I am about the findings you're going to experience. Let me say this for the body. I love stories. They're part of the humanistic way we operate. But when you're operating a business, evidence is most important. Anecdotes, sure, they're great. What do people think about us? What does the market say about us? That's the most important thing. Not the one-offs that you hear every blue moon. So you're going to get a very big, high-level summary of what folks in New Jersey think about us. And we'll try to do that in every single activity we have. What does the evidence say about what we're doing? I will conclude my report by saying that I can't wait to hear from them.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And with that, we have the privilege of welcoming Dr. Patrick Murray. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome. Thank you for being with us here today. We should be able to get your presentation up on the screen. In a second.
As it's coming up, I want to thank you for the opportunity to work on this project. I have deep connections to Rutgers. Rutgers alum, graduate school, and got my start in training in what I do today at Rutgers. So I'm deeply indebted. And it's the story that we're going to tell today, and it is a story because when we talk about public opinion, whether it's from residents, whether it's from business owners and executives and managers, it's a story of how they feel, how they interact, how they perceive. And that reflects in the value that they place on things. And the value that they place on Rutgers is pretty significant. So the first slide is the ubiquitous study methodology slide. It's a professional requirement that we put this up here, particularly for a university, to show that I was actually properly trained. But to tell you what we did, it was a survey of just over 1,000 New Jersey residents, adult residents, across the board. It is representative of all geographies, all demographics. It is a representative sample of that population. The business population we did, which was a survey of 300 business owners and executives, was slightly different. It was, we made sure that they had at least some familiarity with Rutgers, and we excluded government agencies as well, and we limited it to those who employed over 25 employees in the state, because we wanted to get a sense of that kind of population. All right, so I'm going to first talk about the resident survey, and then I'll go into the business survey, and then I'll sum them both up together. All right, so the first section is image and awareness. Just what's the overall impression of Rutgers? So the first question that we ask is, just off the top of your head, thinking of a university in the tri-state area, and of course the tri-state area in New Jersey means 5 states, because if you're in North Jersey, it's a different tri-state than down here, right? So it's 5 states, and we just off the top of your head, name a university or college. 64% off the top of their head said Rutgers University. Far surpassing the second place contestant there, which was Princeton at 27%. And you see NYU's down the list, and Penn and Penn State and so forth. Rutgers is a deeply embedded part of the fabric of how people think about New Jersey. That number stands out. And I've seen this question, I've asked this question before in different ways, where we've only asked about New Jersey. I wanted to broaden it to the tri-state region, because you can bring in some of those other big name schools that people know about. And still, when we do that, there's nothing that comes up in people's minds, like college and university. If you're in New Jersey, you think Rutgers. We specifically asked, how familiar are you with Rutgers? And 80% said that they had at least somewhat familiarity, 40% very familiar with Rutgers. They knew it was the State University of New Jersey. There's still some people who don't know Rutgers, but that's to be expected in anything. There's just a few percent, about 10%, who really have a low familiarity with Rutgers. Then we asked, what do you think about Rutgers? Because this is the question, is that what is Rutgers? What purpose does it serve to people in New Jersey? You know, we have a significant number of Rutgers alumni in the state, certainly, or family alumni. About between alumni and family of alumni, it's probably about a third of the state has some deep connection to Rutgers in that way. But the 2/3 that don't have that direct connection, what do they think about? And there isn't a single image. And as you'll see as I go through this, that fact is actually a strength. Because what we see is different people find ways that they connect with Rutgers for different reasons. The most prevalent word that comes up when we ask people to name what off the top of their head was a connection to the state, that is embedded in the state. And then beyond that, they talked about things like, its general identity, its location, but they also some people talked about sports, some people talked about programs, some people talked about a whole host of other things around there. There was a way to connect. Then we got into, well, what do you think of Rutgers? And Rutgers, 77% have a favorable opinion of Rutgers. Just very few have 10% have an unfavorable view of Rutgers, and another 10 or so have no opinion. When we asked folks how they would compare Rutgers to its peer group, 60% rated it above its peer group, either one of the best or above average. When we looked at favorability across the board, and by the way, and then very few people rated it below average, it was just 5%, and the rest said it was about in the mix, but 60% put it above average. That's the way they view Rutgers. That's how they see Rutgers, is above its peer group. When we asked favorability across the regions, we saw, we can't do it for each of the 21 counties, but we broke the state into 7 regions, which I've been doing for years because culturally this is how they hang together, which is kind of interesting because the way they hang together also kind of centers around each of the 3 campuses. So if you see the Route 1 corridor around New Brunswick, the Delaware Valley down here, the numbers, favorable numbers are 84%. Around Newark and the Essex Hudson area, it's 76%, although there's some other things that are even higher in that area when we get into some of the community outreach mission of Rutgers really plays significantly in that part of the state. All right, so what I'm going to go on is, I went backwards the wrong way here. Let's go back here. There we go. All right, we asked specifically about different people and programs at Rutgers. So Rutgers faculty, Rutgers outreach programs, agricultural, that program, the land grant mission of Rutgers. We also asked specifically about Rutgers graduates that you have had professional dealings with. And we asked whether they're favorable or unfavorable. To the extent that they haven't had an opinion of this, the favorable to unfavorable ratios were incredible. They range from 4-to-1 for faculty to 12-to-1 for Rutgers graduates that they have actually worked with. And that's going to be a theme throughout this. If they have a personal connection to somebody from Rutgers, they've dealt with somebody from Rutgers or something from Rutgers, their opinion of the entire university goes up because of the way that person represents Rutgers to them. All right, so then we asked about a question about the Big Ten Conference, which President Tate mentioned. We asked a couple of questions about the Big Ten Conference because there's a debate about what role does that fill. And we found that when we asked about its impact on the educational quality of Rutgers and what that perception was in the public, is that it was the positive perceptions that it actually helps the educational quality far outnumbered the negative perceptions that it hurt by quite a bit. And this is, again, going to say that that the public sees the Big Ten serving a much larger role for Rutgers than just athletics. All right, now I'm going to go into the section where we talk about the different aspects of the mission. We asked 15 specific questions about the importance of different aspects of Rutgers' mission, plus a couple of other questions related to Rutgers' mission. which I'll mention as we go along here. So I broke them out into different parts. So the first part is the student experience here. And this was a 5-point scale. So we asked them how important this was, from extremely important, very important, somewhat important, not to, or not at all important. What we're showing on the screen right here are the top 2 points of that 5-point scale, the extremely and very. And as you can see, the numbers are extremely high for the core mission of Rutgers. So this is not surprising at all to anybody. Providing skills that the students can use in their jobs, and also providing them with ways to enhance their critical thinking as they go out into life, are among the top tier of the 15 or so that we asked about. The other one that's on the screen right here, which is community engagement, which is over 70% said that was important. That's in the second tier, encouraging students to become more engaged in their communities. There are a few demographic differences when we ask these. One thing that we found is that among Black New Jerseyans in particular, some of these things around community engagement ranked even higher than for some other groups, and that was pretty consistent across the board. When we go to the next section, which was, we were asking about one of the hot topics nationally today, which I don't think national polling has done a good job in understanding, which is what role do universities serve in terms of providing a place where both students and faculty can engage in discussions about controversial information topics. And this was specifically about what do New Jerseyans think Rutgers should be? Which role should that play? And we asked it in 4 different ways. We asked it about students in the classroom, students outside of the classrooms, professors in the classroom, and professors outside the classroom. There are some variations among those 4, but all 4 of them were rated as something that was important for Rutgers to provide. Spaces where students and faculty can explore and discuss those topics both inside and outside the classroom. Now, the next one we asked about mission, teaching, and research. And one of the areas that we focused on specifically was health research, cutting-edge health research, and then we focused on having top-tier faculty, well-respected faculty, in 3 different areas: in STEM, the liberal arts, and in professional fields. And what we found is that all of them were highly rated. There are some. The ones for liberal arts are slightly lower rated. We see this in national surveys as well. These are all top tier. When I talked about top tier in the student outcomes section, these are also top tier as well for New Jersey residents that Rutgers should be focusing on having the top types of faculty. The one difference that we see in this that reflects what we see nationally is this debate about the liberal arts, which is mainly political. The difference that you see on the screen with that last slide, which is a slight difference overall, but it's mainly driven by a political discussion rather than an educational one or a pedagogical one. Then we move on to talking about access and opportunity. And here again, we get another one of the top tier items that New Jerseyans say Rutgers should be focused on. And that is providing opportunities for students who come from families who don't necessarily have the resources to pursue a higher education. And New Jerseyans feel that Rutgers should be a leader in the state in providing those types of opportunities. That ranks in the top tier of its basic core mission of having top-level faculty research and providing students with the skills that they need to succeed in the workplace. The other question that we asked there was about specifically going out and doing outreach in areas that may not feel that they see the opportunity exist. And that number is also, again, high as well. That ranks in some of them down in the lower tier, but that still is ranked up there. And it's particularly significant in urban communities throughout the state. The next section we asked about just New Jersey focus. Remember, we started with saying that the top of mind question that we asked already gave us a pretty clear indication, without going any further, that New Jerseyans consider Rutgers as part of the fabric of the state. And then we specifically asked them this question, that what should Rutgers be doing in terms of keeping students in the state? That was another one that came up as a tier 2 issue that Rutgers should be focused on. That this is a key importance. We need to keep our high school students in state. This ties into providing opportunity. This ties into providing a high level education with top tier professors and research and student experience to keep those students in state. And New Jerseyans think that is extremely important. And they also think it's important. It's a little lower level, but again, we're talking about numbers that are in the 70 percentile here. I mean, so this is, we're not talking about degrees of difference, is that all of these are extremely high. And, looking at Rutgers' larger role of serving the state beyond what it teaches in the classroom, and again, that number is high as well. This is something that people feel that Rutgers should be focused on. And we asked some specific types of public services, and they're up on the screen here. I won't go over every one of them, but what I want to point out is that these are important, but they would mainly rank, like I would say, tier 3. So we're talking tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. These would be tier 3, which would make sense, but they're still, again, they're high. Everything's over 50% here, except for one of them, which was public health and safety programs. That's really a tier 2 priority according to the public about what Rutgers should be doing in terms of its outreach here. And what's interesting is that there's not a lot of demographic differences here. This is really across the board that New Jerseyans have this perception that these are the things that they would like to see Rutgers focus on as part of their mission. All right, so now I'm going to move on to that state asset question. So we kind of laid the groundwork that people do think it's important. Is it important enough to invest in? And New Jerseyans say absolutely. It is extremely important for them to do that. They agree wholeheartedly that New Jerseyans, over 70%, say that the state should invest, keep students in the state, and that 80% say that, 70% say, over 70% say that any investment that the state makes pays dividends for all New Jerseyans. And that's a key, I think it's a key finding. And again, it's one that's fairly across the board. There are some political differences here as well, as I mentioned before in some of the other controversial things. But these numbers are a majority of all political groups. They're a key, high-level priority, this investment from the state among every demographic group that we looked at. All right, so I just wanted to kind of summarize here on these key findings, because I also wanted to point out something that we focused on in the survey, and the questions are in the questionnaire, and then they're in the public document that you have. But one of the things that we wanted to look at was, when people think about Rutgers, what's the physical image that comes to mind? Specifically, what's the campus that they focus on? Because we felt that there could be differences there. And so, unsurprisingly, 2/3 said that the campus that they think about when they hear Rutgers is New Brunswick. But we had significant numbers, over 10% said Newark, and 8% said Camden. Even 1% said Rutgers Health was the way that they saw Rutgers as well. And I think it's something that's up and coming for Rutgers as we see going forward. What was interesting about that finding is that when we looked at all the other findings in the study, is those specifically who were focused on Rutgers Camden, the vast majority of them either had a personal connection, either through attending or family member attending Camden or Newark, or they lived in closer proximity to those two campuses, and they were more likely to see Rutgers serving a community role than many other people in the state. And that was really important to them. So, and again, when I went back to the very beginning where I said there isn't no single image of Rutgers, this is where that becomes a strength. Because people find ways that Rutgers is relevant to them, and then they can make that connection. All right, let me move on to the business survey. And you're going to see very similar kind of results here. Again, when we asked the question about what's the image of Rutgers, what do you think, we got the same range of answers. It was all over the place. A little bit more answers on actual programmatic from businesses than we got from residents as a whole, but pretty much across the board, we saw that some people mentioned sports, some people mentioned the education, some mentioned a specific program. But there were very few negatives actually mentioned in that. Some people mentioned that like 1% said it's too expensive, and a very few percent talked about something that they saw that was in the news, maybe a negative story or something like that. So when we ask these businesses, an abbreviated version of the mission questions that we asked before, what we find is that the number who have a favorable opinion of Rutgers is even higher than it was for the general public. Those who say that they have a very favorable opinion is well over 60%. So it's when you have 9 in 10 saying that they have a favorable opinion of you, that means that they see value of you. And the same thing that when we asked about different groups that they have worked with, is that again the favorable to unfavorable, there's almost no unfavorables there. If they know them, they have a very favorable opinion of those groups that are affiliated with Rutgers, whether it's students, whether it's faculty, whether it's specific programs. And also, a question that we asked is, does Rutgers contribute to the economic vitality of the state? And we have 8 in 10 basically say yes, it does. That number is even higher than, we asked the same question in the public survey, and this, for businesses, this is even higher. They see it playing a role in what they do, and in their ability to succeed in New Jersey, is Rutgers plays a role in that. That's very important to them. Then we asked about the mission. As I said, we had an abbreviated kind of mission section there. And again, the same thing rise to the top. Provide those skills that students need to succeed in their jobs after graduation. And embed them with critical thinking ability. And also, and this is interesting, this is coming from businesses, provide opportunities for students who can't afford necessarily to go to higher education. That was important to businesses as well as to residents as a whole, which I think was an interesting key finding, is that they saw the value in that as well. All right, then we get into what really is the interesting about things that you should think about with businesses that going forward, is that whether they had an interaction with Rutgers directly. And so we asked about this in 4 different ways, and I'll show some of them. But the first one is the employer Rutgers graduate. And a little bit more than a third do employ a Rutgers graduate, and they almost wholeheartedly say that in their workforce, those Rutgers graduates stand out. So we have that over, 8 and 10 say that they're standouts in, or about 8 and 10 say they're standouts in their workforce. We also asked a very similar question about student interns, and it was 7 and 10 who said that they were standouts, the student interns and workers that they had in their field. What's interesting about this is that these folks who have employed Rutgers graduates also have higher opinions across the board on all the other questions that we asked about Rutgers in general. And that's a key. It's similar when we ask questions about, have you ever drawn on faculty, expertise, or research through your business or through your industry to help your business? And among those who did, which was about a third, who said that they've had this experience, again, it was almost all of them said it was valuable to them, with 3/4 saying very valuable, rating it at the top. This is something that really drove the business. We asked a similar question about outreach, external outreach programs. which could be anything from HR assistance to specific assistance with your business model or plan. There's a whole host of things, legal assistance as well. And again, similar numbers. I mean, over 9 in 10 say that this was valuable to them, with the vast majority saying very valuable to the work they did. And again, these people tell us that they have an extremely positive opinion of Rutgers. Basically, if we look at the impact overall, and we find that among those who had faculty expertise or outreach, 80% had a very favorable opinion of Rutgers. Among those who employed Rutgers graduates, it was 74%, and 68% who had an intern. Among those who had none of those experiences, it was 50% favorable, and the rest were like, I'm not sure. So, I mean, that's really the key, is that kind of that Rutgers diaspora that's out there is really feeding, I know a Rutgers person, I've worked with this Rutgers person, therefore I have a very good opinion of Rutgers overall, was a pretty consistent theme throughout the entire survey. All right, so just to sum up, what we have here is New Jersey residents and businesses hold State University in high regard. 77% of the public, 94% of businesses say they have a favorable opinion of Rutgers. Both the general public and the business community see Rutgers as contributing to the university's economic vitality and quality of life. We also asked the quality of life question too. And 3 of 4 residents say state government investment in Rutgers pays dividends for all of New Jersey. Both the general public and the business community have very positive views of Rutgers, specifically meaning the individual peoples and programs, the groups that they deal with or that they're familiar with, and the more they interact with these individuals or programs, the more they have a universally positive view of Rutgers overall. The top priority for Rutgers' mission among both residents and businesses are providing the skills needed for graduates in their working life and helping students become critical thinkers and producing college opportunities for students who might normally not have the resources to do that. The second tier includes having respected faculty across all disciplines and in health science research, as well as providing state public health and safety programs. That is kind of the underscore of all that's under there. So I like there's kind of a whirlwind tour. There's a lot of data in there. I want to try to hit a little bit of all of it. So I'm going to get into all, but you have the numbers in front of you in the public report. But I'm happy to answer any questions that if anybody has them.
Thank you very much for the absolutely insightful survey. I'll open the floor to the governors. Any questions, comments? Senator Helmuth?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Patrick, for this incredible work. It's really interesting and I think incredibly useful for the board and also for future communications opportunities. A moment of levity as a Rutgers grad at the table whose employer is also at the table, I would note the importance of slide 28 and how Rutgers employees are viewed. Two questions. Any differentiation in terms of the favorability either in the business community or in the public as it relates to demographic groups, urban or suburban, different business industries? And the second question, which is related, anything that surprised you in terms of our gaps where you thought we would have more favorability or awareness or positive indications and there wasn't?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. In the business community, the industry sector that kept coming up highest were professional services such as legal, financial, and information technologies across the board. And they kept coming up with the greatest favorability rate. But then when we started looking at that, they were the ones that were most likely to report having Rutgers graduates work for them and using these external resources that Rutgers provides. So that goes all hand in hand. We did have a large enough group of, say, in the health industry in the sample. It was a small sample, so the health industry was wide and varied, included anything from pharmacies to long-term care centers as well. So they were kind of all over the place with what they were thinking as well. But that was the one group that I saw was that group, the professional. And again, the correlation seemed to be less about the actual professional field and more about the fact that they simply had more points of entry of contact with Rutgers on an individual level. In terms of gaps there, it's not so much a gap, but it was really fascinating when we looked at kind of the intersection between, say, different demographic groups by race and ethnicity, and also where they lived, and in proximity to the different campuses. So, so we saw that proximity to Camden and Newark was significantly higher rating for a whole host of things related both to the mission and to favorability as well, in terms of external activities of Rutgers. And that wasn't quite the case in New Brunswick, and even if we eliminate New Brunswick to like the surrounding counties, that's such a big entity there that they see it in so many different ways there. So it doesn't have the same kind of connection, but it serves a different purpose. And I think that was what the key was. What was interesting is that wherever you are in the state, there's something that you can latch onto to say, okay, that's Rutgers, and that's where Rutgers fits for me. That's how Rutgers serves my community. Even if it's not community in terms of a small geographic sense, but community in terms of my business, my field, just the quality of life overall. That was what was interesting.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I'll just close by once again, just applaud leadership for doing this kind of assessment. It's a data tool not traditionally used by enterprises like this, and for bringing somebody with the expertise of Patrick on to do it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Helmy. Mr. Tappan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, only because I can't allow Governor Senator Helmy to be the only one to comment here. Patrick, I just want to say, that it's great work. I think it's very helpful. In some ways reaffirms some thoughts that I may have personally had. In some ways shifts some thoughts, more properly. And I think that having that perspective and creating that baseline is critical. I would be curious at some point if it's available to see some of the crosstabs relative to the geography on some of where New Jersey stands in terms of its support for Rutgers, and where, as much as it's helpful, and I'm glad to see such positive results, where we can be doing better, where the emphasis needs to be enhanced. So that's number one, if that can be provided in some fashion. Number two would be that obviously this documentation and this process is helpful and should be shared with a number of other critical stakeholders that care about the state university. You have a new administration in Trenton. We have an extended and fairly with new presidency, some new folks here at Rutgers as well. I just think that it's helpful to understand where we can lean in more, and where we're already fairly strong, and how we can better leverage those assets. And then my one direct question would just be, just out of curiosity, are there any other benchmarks for this type of work? This is fairly positive, or very positive, incredibly positive for Rutgers. Was this your expectation? Have you seen this in other academic, endeavors of this nature? Just curious how we benchmark.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Rutgers did undertake a major study 22 years ago. I was actually at Rutgers as a graduate student, not a graduate student, I was actually employed at Rutgers at the time. Well, I didn't do the study, but I was around when that happened. And that was, I think, the first of its kind. And I think there was a check-in about 10 or 11 years ago. Not asking exactly the same questions, but similar questions. If you go back to 10 or 11 years ago, there was, that was when, as President Tate mentioned, that was when Rutgers was joining the Big Ten. And there was a lot of attention, and we had a different press and media environment, as you all know, back then, where you could talk about, like everybody was glommed into the same story. We don't have that, the same thing. Like when we asked a question about, and it's in the documentation about Rutgers in the news, and about a quarter have seen something about Rutgers in the news. And I think back in 2014 that was significantly higher because of what was going on at the time. You also had, you were coming off of a merger with the medical school, right? So Rutgers was in the news, and the news was something that people paid attention to in New Jersey. So, in answer to your question, what I'm going to ask is that the benchmarks are hard to use because the context has changed so significantly. Now, so I wasn't sure exactly what we would find because of what's going on in the political debate around public education. And I think it's possibly fair to even assume or make a hypothesis at least that there has been a reaction in New Jersey against some of the negativity about higher education. And it's part and parcel because, as I mentioned, there's this sense that Rutgers is part of the fabric and we have a connection to it. I mean, that's what came out to me, which was really interesting. I thought we would get a little bit more of saying, if you knew Rutgers, you knew about football, you knew this about the other, but it was really across the board, and people found their niche, their pocket, and that's, I think, the strength, that Rutgers isn't a monolith, isn't just known for one thing, that it serves in the most diverse state in the country, it serves a purpose for that diversity.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. We have a question on Zoom. Mr. Tropopka?
Thank you very much, Patrick. Great job, and obviously a ton of detail. And I agree with your comment and observation. It's such a diverse microcosm of some expertise that hopefully we offer the state. Question on kind of prospective, and do you do that type of work where you're asking kind of what else would you like to see from the university, or what else would have raised your scoring? Did you guys get into that, or did you glean anything from some of the answers that would be helpful on a prospective basis for us?
Well, I don't think, we be careful how I say this, right? Because you don't want the public opinion to be leading your mission. You want to look at where people sit and say, and here's where the needs are. And that's what we're trying to get, the sense of where the needs are. Then you decide how you fulfill the mission. Then we come back and say, do a check-in later and say, did you pick up on that? Did you meet those needs as this study detailed? Rather than kind of telling you which way you should go. I think there's enough in here that tells you the direction of how people think about Rutgers and the opportunities that Rutgers has of taking different directions in moving forward and serving the state. And as long as you continue to keep to kind of the sense that people have that you are looking out for the good of the state. And there are a couple of things that are popping to the top. As I mentioned, one thing that was popping to the top was health and public health and safety, in terms of an issue area that people are concerned about right now. And I think that gives you some guidance about some things you might want to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Tropopka. Ms. Mansue?
Mr. Murray, just a quick question for you. Thank you again for your work. I noticed that if you add the people that reported that were alumni, plus the people who are family members, you're in that 30% range. Were there any disqualifying questions, i.e., are you employed by Rutgers? And this talks about it as a university, but we obviously have the economic engine of being one of the largest employers in those geographies that you talked about.
Right. While you are one of again, this was statewide, so while Rutgers is one of the largest employers in the state, we didn't disqualify people, we did ask them. And I think it was about 2% were either a current or a family member of and it's in the report, were a family member or were an employee themselves. 2% doesn't change the outcome. And we thought at that point that it didn't disqualify them. They're part of the New Jersey public, and their opinion counts as much as anybody else's.
Thank you. Any other questions? Wonderful. Thank you again for all the work on this and presenting today. We're very grateful to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take care. And now we have the pleasure of welcoming the Chancellor of Rutgers University, Camden, Chancellor Tillis. Thank you very much for hosting us here today. We're absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Towers, members of the Board of Governors, colleagues from the Chancellor's units across the state, and also members of the general public. I always appreciate the opportunity to share the latest updates of what's happening here in the South at Rutgers University in Camden. As we reflect on our progress, I'm proud of the strides that we've made, and I'm confident that we are positioned to meet the evolving needs of higher education and those demands. And building on today's highlights, I hope that you too will see the same. I first want to thank Madam Chair for giving you that synopsis of 100 years of Rutgers University in Camden and all of its iterations. And would like to really state that we are proud of this milestone and that our centennial year marks 100 years of resilience, innovation, excellence, and transformation in South Jersey and beyond. As we honor our past, we're also looking ahead into our future. I'd like to take a moment to share this brief video highlighting our centennial celebration. Here we go.
For nearly a century, Rutgers University Camden has stood as a beacon of opportunity, innovation, and community impact in South Jersey. Our story begins in 1926, when civic leaders opened the South Jersey Law School, an evening program designed for working adults. Just a year later, the College of South Jersey expanded that vision, creating pathways in law and liberal arts for students close to home. Through the Great Depression and post-war years, these institutions persevered, prioritizing affordability, access, and academic rigor. In 1950, a historic merger with Rutgers transformed Camden's colleges into a proud part of the State University of New Jersey. From the first graduating class in 1952 to the opening of a modern library in 1957, the campus embraced growth and scholarly momentum. The decades that followed brought bold expansion and vibrant student life. The 1960s and 1970s saw new science facilities, the Campus Center, and the Fine Arts Building, home to the Gordon Theater and Stedman Gallery. Student voices shaped campus culture, from civil rights advocacy to athletic milestones. By the 1980s and 1990s, Rutgers Camden had evolved into a comprehensive university, launching graduate programs, opening residence halls, and earning national accreditation. The 2000s and 2010s deepened our civic mission, expanded health and research initiatives, and achieved Carnegie R2 status for high research activity. Today, Rutgers Camden stands at the threshold of its second century. With inclusive leadership, national recognition, and transformative projects like the Cooper Street Gateway, we honor our heritage while shaping a future of excellence, commitment, and elevation. This is Rutgers University Camden, a century strong and just getting started.
I thought I'd show this just to underscore and give you some visuals relative to that wonderful overview that Madam Chair gave. So, transitioning into our enrollment. Enrollment here at Rutgers University Camden, I'm very pleased to say, is very positive, in that students are, we know, our lifeblood relative to what they bring to us, and also is our responsibility to make sure that they are getting what they need in order to get out, to get these jobs, in order to appear, and their voices to appear on surveys like the one we just saw. Our success in enrolling and retaining students speaks to the diligence of our efforts relative to admissions, enrollment, and also our student success team. While new student enrollment is down slightly for spring 2026, we have had and doubled enrollment for the first time in college students over the past years. Also, campus housing, and these numbers indicate that campus housing, we're very excited that it continues to grow. Right now, Rutgers Camden, relative to our residential facilities, we are at 92% capacity over last year's 86% capacity, and that is continuing to grow as efforts have been made to ameliorate student lounging, having more areas for students to have communal spaces, adding game rooms and wayfinding systems throughout our multiple residential spaces. Despite the slight drop in new students, overall spring 2026 enrollment rose by 2.6%, an increase in roughly about 150 students. Increases among first-time and continuing undergraduates are fueling our growth. International enrollment also increased 14.3% over spring 2025, driven by continuing undergraduates, our third straight year of growth in this area. Even as international enrollment has declined by 7% nationally, Rutgers Camden is defying the trend and experiencing growth. We're strengthening global partnerships, including a new MOU in Manila with the University of the Philippines, and the School of Business Dean, Dr. Monica Agia, has also been visiting and concretizing many agreements with universities across India. Moving on to graduation rates, the fall 2020 cohort's four-year rate declined roughly by 34% due to the impact of the pandemic, but since then, the five-year rate rebounded to 48.9% through sustained student success initiatives and targeted pathway support. The most recent cohort achieved a 41.6% four-year graduation rate, which indicates to us that there is clear improvement as we usher our students to graduate on time. With regards to retention, overall undergraduate retention has improved since 2020 with retention rates for rising sophomores, juniors, and seniors remaining steady in recent years. Our efforts to prevent students from dropping out or stopping out of school have been successful because we have been able to provide additional support and resources to students who may be vulnerable to those outcomes. To shed more light relative to retention and our retention efforts, I'd like to invite Dr. Jimmy Zhang, the Senior Vice Chancellor for Student Success and Enrollment Management, to address what we're doing in this area to give you more information regarding retention, since I know this was one of the last questions that one of the members of the Board of Governors asked.
Thank you, Chancellor. Retention at Rutgers Camden must be understood in the context of our mission and the students we serve. We educate a highly diverse population, including a large share of first-generation students, mostly transfer students that come in as transfers, and working students. And traditionally, these groups face unprecedented challenges and persistence. But despite these headwinds, our retention rates have remained stable, and more importantly, we have clear evidence of what drives student success here. Early academic engagement, timely faculty feedback, and a sense of belonging are the strongest predictor of whether or not our students persist. So therefore, we find our strategy to be more precise as opposed to be broad. And I'm going to break down 4 quick strategies that we've implemented. The first one is early academic engagement in the first 2 weeks, using real-time our Canvas system, making sure students who are new students log into the system within the first 2 weeks. And those who are not connected, we actively serve them. Call them or find them on campus to make sure that they are here and are engaged. We collect mid-semester academic signals. We've implemented a systematic faculty progress report close to the midterm, a little bit before, identifying students that show early signs of academic difficulty before that grade becomes final. Third, we deployed a brief but targeted survey to identify challenges that students face. Their academic confidence, their social integration, their time management, and external obligations. And we use these results to personalize outreach to students we feel are potentially at risk. And finally, using these predictors, we have developed a machine learning model. We're developing a machine learning model that integrates all these touch points in order to look at students or target students who might be potentially at risk. This effort has enabled us to be more efficient in the allocation of support resources. Taken together, this approach allows us to hopefully improve retention moving forward in a data-driven, student-centered way that will fully align with Rutgers Camden's mission. That's it, sir.
Fiscal responsibility sustains momentum. for FY '26, tuition and fees remain our primary revenue source, reinforcing the importance of enrollment growth and also retention. Strategic allocation and careful budgeting allows us to invest in priorities while maintaining long-term stability, supported by external funding and also philanthropy. So again, this gives you an idea of how our budget is allocated. Moving on to grant funding and institutional advancement. Total grant funding, we are just over halfway through FY '26, and as is indicated that our year-to-date is $19.6 million relative to last year's close at $20.4 million. However, I was pulled aside before giving this presentation to say that we are now at last year's goal of $20.4 million at this point in the academic year. So we're looking forward to a banner year as it comes to grant funding. I really want to stop here to really thank Vice Chancellor Tom Rush and the way he has been working with our faculty researchers in this most unprecedented time when they were concerned about whether or not they were getting the monies from the federal government in order to sustain and continue their research. So Tom, our hat goes off to you and your team, and also working with Zwick and the Central Office of Research. As we move to institutional advancement, we've already raised nearly $5.7 million for FY '26, exceeding our annual goal of $5.69. We've raised a little, so we're really excited. It's where we are again, halfway through the year. We are where we were relative to our goal, thanks to Lee Wacker, who was new to us, and also the support given by our president of the foundation, Kimberly Copley. Working in concert, we're moving the needle here relative to those that are investing in Rutgers Camden. Talking a little bit about celebrating our distinctions. In 2026, U.S. News & World Report online program rankings, Rutgers Camden advanced across multiple categories. Our online bachelors rose from number 39 to number 29, thanks to the strengths of our online bachelor's programs in economics, liberal studies, business administration, and nursing. Our master's in business program, excluding the MBA, improved from number 61 to number 45, while graduate business programs for veterans rose from 28 to 22. Online master's in business programs improved from number 88 to number 71, and our ranking in online programs for veterans went up from number 56 to number 44. Our bachelor's in business programs dipped slightly from 21 to 24, but the overall upward trend is clear. In addition, our 2025 national rankings, which we saw Rutgers Camden achieve best ever placement in a variety of categories, continue to be a point of pride for not only our campus, but also for the entirety of the university. Student success is the heart of what we do. Our students continue to excel. Undergraduates won New Jersey's Ballot Bowl on the strengths of their statewide nonpartisan voter engagement. A new research initiative course enables our students to present original work at national scientific conferences without financial barriers. In October of 2025, 3 first-generation students from each undergraduate college earned the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship for projects in Jamaica, France, and Taiwan, evidence of our students' talent, their mentorships with their professors, and just what they are capable of doing. We're also excited to share that 7 Rutgers Camden students out of the 15 applicants were named Fulbright semifinalists. These applicants are now under review by the host countries to which they have applied: Taiwan, Colombia, South Africa, Iran, Albania, Germany, and Paraguay. These award types range from study research awards to English teaching assistantship awards. We will find out the final decision no later than May, and we look forward to adding to a proud history of Fulbright finalists at Rutgers Camden. Scarlet Raptors excel across sports, and women, and yes, Mr. President, we are winning. In soccer, Giselle Lizardi and Gianni Patucci earned second-team all-conference honors. In men's soccer, Eric Swin and Brendan Valeri earned first-team all-conference recognition. Standout runner Jacob Dimerman set a new school record in the mile and advanced to the national championships in South Carolina. So we're very proud of where we are with our D3 sports. Faculty achievement. Rutgers-Camden faculty have continued earning competitive funding and national honors. Assistant Professor of Physics Julianne Geppinsberg and Professor of Mathematics A.D. Herrera Guzman will benefit from $700,000 awarded to the university by the Claire Booth Luce Foundation for Women in STEM, funding professorships over multiple years and enabling mentorship, community outreach, and curricular reform. In business, Professor Julia Sterhovska edited Global Marketing in Times of Disruption, which examines how businesses and consumers have responded to marketplace disruption caused by climate change, trade wars, political instability, and digital technology. In nursing, Jamil Nagatron Ramos and Kevin Emmons were inducted as fellows for the American Academy of Nursing. Dean Donna Nikitas was appointed to the Commission of Nursing Reimbursement, and also in law, Professor Kimberly Murchison received the 2026 AALS Deborah D. Rhodes Award, and Assistant Professor Adam Cruz earned the 2026 Emerging Scholar Award for his Stanford Law Review article entitled Visions of Vermont Yankee. Moving forward to our alumni. Our alumni lead and give back to this state with much distinction. Two alumni will serve in New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill's cabinet. Chris Calori, School of Business Class of 1991, has been asked to remain as President CEO of New Jersey Transit and is being nominated to also serve as Executive Director of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, an unprecedented dual role. Jacqueline Suarez, Rutgers Law School, has been asked to remain as Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. Moving rather swiftly to building the future, Rutgers-Camden is expanding capital projects to extend the footprint of our campus. We propose transforming the historic 1899 Ruby Match Factory at 300 North Delaware Avenue, later owned by Campbell Soup, into a 47,000 square foot athletic and community facility adjacent to the Rutgers Athletic Complex, enabling year-round training and competition for soccer, field hockey, track and field, and baseball, as well as dance, fitness, and community programming. In December of 2025, Rutgers Institutional Planning and Operations conducted an expedited on-site assessment with architects, engineers, project managers, security experts, IT, real estate, environment, health, and safety persons, appraisers, and the university's historic architect, with full access to the owner and the Chancellor's office. IP&O issued a facilities assessment on conditions, required renovations, and cost considerations to guide the potential decision as to whether or not and how we are going to move forward with this project. And so we're thankful for the central and thankful to CAO Kimberly Lewis and her team for partnering with us on this. Lots happening here at Rutgers-Camden as it relates to upcoming events. Our Centennial and Year of the Arts lineups are robust. February 6th marked the premiere of Hand Me Down, The Silver Trumpet, written and directed by Dr. Ken Elliott, Chair of our Visual, Media, and Performing Arts, featuring alumna Tiara Green. On February 18th, the 4th annual Raptor Rally features men's and women's basketball taking on New Jersey City University, and we're also incredibly excited for the unveiling of our new Scarlet Raptor mascot. On February 24th, we welcome Governor Thomas Kean to the universities for the Centennial Lecture, and would love to invite all of you back to hear Senator Kean You know, I've had the pleasure of having 3 or 4 audiences with him, and I tell you, I learn more about the state of New Jersey and about him with every single moment spent with him. So I'm really excited that he has agreed to come to our campus for this lecture. More upcoming events will include, on February 26th, we debut Runway to Renewal, the first on-campus fashion show in our university's history, featuring Project Runway's Koto Molotu and faculty member Marjorie Amdor's quote, Wearing the Inside Out, a live performance reimagining hospital gowns. So this should be a very interesting collaboration between this designer and the creativity and intellectual ingenuity of our professor. The spring address follows on March 10th, and the Year of the Arts concludes on March 26th with Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Percival Everett. Yes. Together, these events reflect a season of expression, inquiry, celebration, and connection. For details, please scan the QR code on the slide to get more information about what's happening, and also to stay tuned about the events that are going to frame our centennial. Those events are going to be updated as we finalize events that are going to be happening up until the end of next academic year. Thank you for your leadership. To the members of the board, thank you as well, President Tate, for your leadership. We're very excited about how things are moving here in Rutgers Camden, and I hope to see many of you throughout the year as we celebrate our centennial at these various events. So, Madam Chair, this concludes my report, and I am open for any questions that board members might have.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Tillis, for an exciting and comprehensive overview of everything going on at Camden. I'm going to ask that we hold our questions on this one and follow up with Chancellor Tillis separately, because we're running a little bit behind schedule. So if you would indulge me, that Chancellor Tillis will follow up with you afterwards with any questions. Thank you so much. And now we really have the privilege of welcoming the founding director of the Rutgers Brain Health Institute with us today. Dr. Gary Aston Jones is going to introduce another one of our significant points of pride that we have at Rutgers University. And I know our president, when visiting, was beyond impressed and excited with all of this that's going on. And I don't think many of us know as much as we should about the Rutgers Brain Institute and everything that's going on here. So we're really delighted to welcome you today, Dr. Aston.
Well, I want to thank you as a board and President Tate for this opportunity to give some highlights of what we're up to at the Rutgers Brain Health Institute. And I want to start by framing the presentation and really what we do at Brain Health Institute by making the point that brain health is important for all health outcomes. We know that the brain is important for mental health and is involved in many mental disorders. But indeed, the brain is a controller of all the other systems in the body. And any health outcome really depends upon brain health. So I want to kind of make that point that we're not just studying one organ of the brain, but we're studying overall health outcome when we study brain health. So just to give you some background, the Brain Health Institute is a virtual institute. That means we don't have our own building. We represent all schools and campuses. We are a pan-Rutgers brain research organization, so across all of Rutgers, all schools and departments. I report to 2 chancellors, Rutgers Health and Rutgers New Brunswick. We support and engage neuroscience across Rutgers, like I said, 14 schools and 50 departments. We're one of the world's largest brain research organizations in terms of numbers of investigators and trainees, over 300 investigators and 900 postdoc and student trainees. And we're growing. So since I've arrived, we've recruited 48 new tenure track faculty. We've created 5 new centers of research excellence, and we've got more of both of those on the way, as I'll review briefly. This is our org chart. So as I mentioned, I report to the Rutgers Health and Rutgers New Brunswick chancellors. There are 5 centers that we've developed that report them to me, and I'll go into those in more detail shortly. We also have organized the Brain Health Institute into 6 different focus area working groups, and the chairs and vice chairs of those also report to me along with an administrative staff. So our 48 recruits are largely translational. When I joined Rutgers, I had the opportunity to name the institute the Brain Institute, the Neuroscience Institute. I deliberately chose the Brain Health Institute to capture the translational health-related mission that I saw for us. So over 80% of our recruits have primary appointments in clinical departments in either medical school. Our recruits all conduct research that are aimed at developing new treatments for important clinical disorders of the brain and publish cutting-edge translational research in high-impact journals. And just to give some highlights right at the beginning here, in terms of funding, total grants that our 48 recruits have brought into Rutgers is now over $110 million. And our rankings are also something to be proud of. So we rank #1 in NIH funding for among all New Jersey universities, including Princeton. We're #4 compared to the 8 Ivy League universities, and we rank #8 in the top half of the 18 Big Ten universities. Philanthropy also has been going well, but also always do better. But we're doing almost $24 million to date. And just to break that down a little bit, our major gifts have come from the Krieger Klein Foundation, Herb Klein, and the Jackie Klein, to establish our Alzheimer's Research Center. And additional funding for the Alzheimer's Research Center, our Computational Neuropsychiatry Center has a request for about $500,000 pilot grants for Alzheimer's, a recent gift for $95,000. Endowed chairs, we've got 4 of those for $12 million, and then some additional family gifts that have added up to almost $24 million so far. And as I'll mention later, we're engaging in a new donor development program, so we hope to see these numbers significantly increase in the near future. The real crux of the Brain Health Institute is our centers, and just going to give you a real brief overview of the centers. We have a center in addiction research, in Alzheimer's disease research, in autism research, in computational neuropsychiatry research, and finally in human brain imaging research. And I'll go into each of these in a little more detail. First, looking at our Addiction Research Center, this is directed by Danielle Dick, a very dynamic senior investigator we were fortunate to recruit about 4 years ago. Danielle was supported by the Greg Brown Endowed Chair, a gift from Greg Brown. And she's developed a very multidisciplinary center that engages basic translational and clinical research units, multiple schools and departments. She's got a number of partnerships with the health system, including, as you can see here, the Institute for Prevention and Recovery, Tackling Addiction Task Force, some ER learning health system pilot partnerships as well. The center is involved in clinical trials across several sites in New Jersey. She's recruited 6 faculty to date, and more recruitments are ongoing. And she's been very successful at developing training programs. So the Addiction Center so far has been successful in bringing in 2 T32 institutional level training grants from the NIH that support graduate student and postdoc training, as well as a recent award for an R25 training grant that supports undergraduate exposure to research activities. And this gives you contact information as well as that QR code that you can see on the left side of the slide. Our next center that I want to highlight is the Addiction Research Center. This is headed by Michal Beery. We recruited Michal about 3 years ago now. As I mentioned, this was established with a gift of $7.5 million from the Herbert Jacqueline Brewer Klein Foundation. Michal has brought in an additional $6 million in gifts to date since her arrival, which is remarkable. She has a health equity focus. She focuses on understudied populations in the state, including South Asians, Brazilians, and those with Down syndrome, among others. Again, she has clinical trials underway, numerous clinical trials underway in New Jersey. She has funding to support a physician scientist training pipeline, which I think is very important because the health system and Rutgers in general is quite low in the number of physician researchers that we have, and we want to increase those, and this is, I think, a very promising avenue for that. Michal has recruited 4 faculty with additional recruitments ongoing. Again, multidisciplinary center with partnerships across several different departments as well as the health system. And I want to point out also a new biotech startup that is headed by Luciano D'Adamio, one of our earliest recruits in the Brain Health Institute. Started a company called Nanoneuron, which is a new biotech developing novel treatments for Alzheimer's disease. And again, contact information for the center in Holland is found there. The Autism Center is also a vibrant and very successful center that we developed now about 6 or 7 years ago. This is a strong partnership with the health system, in particular, a strong partnership with Children's Specialized Hospital to develop, in particular, research and treatment programs in children with severe behavioral disorders and autism. And also involves partnerships with several departments and schools, including the Graduate School of Applied Psychology, as you can see there, in the health system. The specialized clinical facility we developed to allow them to treat severely affected children on Easton Avenue in Somerset near New Brunswick. And that severe behavior program has been very successful. It's treated over 100 patients with 93% average reduction in severe behavior. 100 patients doesn't sound like much, but you need to be aware that these patients are treated for weeks at a time. They're very long duration treatments, and this center has a waiting list for other people that want to be able to receive that treatment. It's a very strong and unique center with talented directors. Supported by the NIH, the New Jersey Department of Health, and medical fees, and also engages in training in partnership with the Graduate School of Applied Professional Psychology, where trainees from that school in Rutgers, New Brunswick, can learn about treating autistic subjects. And again, their contact information you can find there. Our Center for Computational Cognitive Neuropsychiatry is a close partnership with Princeton University. It's the first center that I developed after I came, and it really derives from brainstorming between me and a close friend, John Cohen, who at the time was the director of the Princeton Neuroscience Institute. And we realized an opportunity for developing a behavioral testing facility that would allow investigators to test cognitive disorders and deficits in patients with a variety of neuropsychiatric disorders. So Princeton provided resources, we provided resources, and on our Bush campus, at Rutgers, we have a behavioral testing facility, which includes folks that help us recruit subjects with different disorders, as well as with providing the different behavioral tasks. So the mission is to understand mechanisms leading to new therapies for neuropsychiatric diseases, using the approach of combining computational and cognitive neuroscience to develop novel ideas and diagnostic methods and treatments. It's really taking a step back from the normal approach of finding new therapeutics for neuropsychiatric disorders to understand how cognitive functions work in the first place, and then to develop models of what is awry in different neuropsychiatric disorders, and then test those models in this testing facility. So the partnership with Princeton is quite a strong one. I think it's worth pointing out that these ties with Princeton were important in many ways and are important going forward. I think they were, for example, an important element in the development of the CTSA that was awarded to Rutgers about 8 years ago now, and recently was renewed for another 7 years. This is a specialized behavioral testing facility, as I already mentioned. There was a gift recently for $500,000 as a bequest to that center. And I want to also mention and highlight a recent NIH center grant that we received, large part through this center, a $60 million Conti Center grant from the National Institute of Mental Health. This is quite an honor. I'm proud to be one of the investigators. It involves 4 Rutgers investigators and 4 Princeton investigators collaborating together in the service of these questions. And finally, the Center for Advanced Human Brain Imaging is directed by David Zoll. David, we recruited about 5 years ago now. And David came really into a desert in terms of human brain imaging. We did not have a magnet in the Rutgers, New Brunswick or Rutgers health system. And David came and helped develop the facilities and the magnet, and it's all up and running now, has been for several years. It's a research dedicated magnet and TMS and EEG and eye movement monitoring, all in human subjects. Highly specialized facility in Piscataway of the Bush campus. Again, multidisciplinary that involves human participants with a variety of different psychiatric, neurologic, rare genetic, and metabolic disorders. One of our recent collaborations that we're developing is with the Department of Medicine and the cardiology program, where we can image brain activity at the same time as we image heart activity, which is a novel approach. It's important because, of course, there's information going both ways. The brain is very important in controlling the heart, but changes in the heart turn out to then be very informative about changes that occur in vasculature in the brain with disorders such as Alzheimer's disease and other aging-related disorders. So we're very excited about that new collaboration that has developed. In that center, we've recruited 4 faculty. More recruitments again are underway at present. David is supported by Henry Rutgers professorship. We developed a pilot grant program in collaboration between Rutgers Health and Rutgers New Brunswick. So the 2 chancellor units went together to provide resources for this pilot program, which has awarded 21 pilot grants to date. It was a $900,000 program, and I'm happy to say that even though it's only been in place for a few years, we already have 1 R01 grant that's been awarded as a function of that of the availability of those pilots. And again, this center is integrally involved with that Conti Center grant from the NIH that I mentioned. And again, the contact information.
Dr. Aston Jones, as you continue on,
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
running a little bit short in time.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
with apologies, if we move through this a little bit more quickly,
Okay.
that would be super helpful, with apologies.
Will do.
Thank you,
Will
sir.
do. So we're developing new centers in pain and neurotechnology. To go over some of the connections to the health system, I've already mentioned the faculty are involved, recruited into clinical departments. We're keen on recruiting and have already recruited 2 physician researchers. We partner with Children Specialized, as I mentioned, and I mentioned the addiction center relationship with the health system, and some of our executive council and myself on health system committees that help to bind together and partner, I think, between the Brain Health Institute and the health system. And the imaging center is participating in clinical trials across a variety of different disorders. So we support neuroscience in many ways across Rutgers. We have an annual symposium. It's a record every year. Last year was standing room only. We have to find a larger venue. Each of our centers has a symposium. We have monthly seminars with leading neuroscientists across the country. We have a special postdoc recruitment event each year that we support. Pilot grants that have been very successful, aside from the ones that I already mentioned, with more than 5-fold return on investment. Our website has been really remarkably successful. Over 10,000 visits per month. It's a 4-fold increase just over last year. We made a big effort in increasing our outreach with listservs, constant contact, reaching more than 1,000 people with social media, also all over the apparatus. And the last slide, I believe, is showing our interest in donor development that I mentioned at the beginning. Last May, we had a special event at the Zimmerli Museum for Friends of the Brain Health Institute, a special donor event with Amanda Batista and Ian from the Metropolitan Opera. It was a very successful event with over 130 attendees, very well received, and that is now also involving a new initiative that we're rolling out for women's brain health, which we think is an under-studied area that has a lot of opportunities for making advancements in overall health. I want to just thank my leadership team and also my executive advisory council. And I'm happy to take questions if we have any time.
Thank you so much. And we'll make time for one quick question if there's any burning, urgent questions. If not, it's very helpful. Look at us in the digital age with all the QR codes. Obviously, you can use that in your presentation to get more information. Contact information is in your presentation. Thank you so much, very much for joining us today. We're really grateful to have you. Thank you again. We'll now move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. We do have several members of the public signed up to speak on specific agenda items, and I will be calling on each of you individually to provide remarks. As a brief reminder, speakers will be given 2 minutes for comment and must speak to the specific agenda item they signed up for. We are running a little bit late today, and I understand that one of our speakers is a bit time constrained today. So first, I'm going to call on Ms. Angelica Aguirre. Are you still here, or did you have to leave?
She had to leave, but she can join later via Zoom.
Okay. All right. Well, apologies for that. You can see we had a terrific but very robust agenda today. So apologies that we missed out on that one. Then we'll return back to the list as presented. The first speaker I have is Dr. Kevin Moran, please.
Hello. I'm connecting my comment today to the agenda point 61, I'm a postdoctoral researcher here at Rutgers. I'm also a representative today of the Young Democratic Socialists of America chapter here at Rutgers. Today, as we're considering monetary decisions, student affairs decisions, and our public image as an accessible university, one thing that you must keep in mind is the safety of your student body. I'm here to address all of you, but in particular, I wanted to ask President Tate, are you willing to commit every action that you can to keep your students safe?
Dr. Moran, I'm just going to interrupt you 1 second. I'm going to remind you that you signed up to speak on the academic appointment with tenure recommendation. This doesn't seem to be addressing that.
So I think the agenda changed maybe slightly from when I first signed up to more recently, but I'll be brief.
No, I understood. I just want to say, while your comments are clearly not related to the agenda item that you signed up for, I will use my discretion of the chair to let you finish your remarks. Just to remind you, you have 2 minutes, and we stopped the clock while I was talking, but I will let you finish your remarks. But I would remind other speakers to address the agenda items as prepared. Thank you.
We all know the names: Renee Good, Jr., Alex Preddy, among many others that have been murdered by ICE this year. We all know that ICE's actions are not going to stop. They were reported last week on a 1,500-bed ICE detention camp that was being established in North Jersey. We all know how this is going to be used. Since October, our YDSA chapter has been gathering signatures in support of a simple campaign to establish Rutgers as a sanctuary campus and keep ICE out of our community. As of today, over 3,000 students, faculty, and staff affiliated with Rutgers in some way signed this petition. Demands for protection from and non-compliance with ICE are supported and clearly listed by the grad and faculty and staff unions as well. Thousands and thousands are demanding some simple things from you today, President Tate, and from the rest of this body. Will you commit to complete non-compliance with ICE? Will you commit to preserving the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility programs of this university? Will you refuse to enforce policies that are anti-trans or against any other marginalized group that may be the next targets of this administration? Will you protect free speech and rights to peaceful protest and academic freedom of students, faculty, and staff on our campus? Will you work with local municipalities to commit to non-enforcement and non-compliance with Trump policies that attack immigrant, trans, and other working class communities? In 2016, then President Barchi made a statement on many of these issues, but little official policy came from that statement. President Tate, Board of Governors, are you willing to do what's necessary to protect your students?
Thank you, Dr. Moran. The second speaker will be Ms. Alyssa.
Is there anything?
I've allowed you more than 2 minutes, so I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.